Life's simple. You make choices and you don't look back at the zombies eating the friends you left behind. Instead, you just keep driving and keep listening to us on patreon.com/recesscastproductions. For less than the cost of leaving someone to die in a zombie wasteland, you can support our show and soothe that guilt. Bonus episodes, early access, and exclusive content just for you. Again, that's patreon.com/recesscastproductions. While you survive this life 1/4 mile at a time, remember to enjoy the show.
They've got you running through the night. Yes, it's terror time again. And you just might die of fright. It's terrifying time.
A stylized zombie heist movie. You son of a bitch, I'm in. Welcome to the After Credits Cast, the only film podcast to successfully steal from the metaphorical sick and poor for our own selfish gain. Wait, that doesn't sound very hype. I'm your host, AJ Waseska, and I'm joined by my partner in zombie crimes, Ryan Metters.
Is it really stealing if they're already dead, though?
I mean, metaphorically, yes, but technically, no. And that's the best kind of correct, technically.
That is the best kind of correct.
You can follow us on all the links down below. Patreon, YouTube, Acast, Apple, Google Podcast, all that stuff. One thing I always forget to remind you guys, and I'm going to remind you now more than ever, review our show. If you give us 5 stars, it helps us get noticed by more people, which gets us more views, which then gets us more reviews, more notices. It helps our show grow. So if you give us 5 stars, we'd love it. We'd appreciate it. Any stars, honestly, would be good, but 5's the best. Okay? Don't you want us to be the best? Help us out be the best here. And if you want to comment down below and explain why we're the best, you can go to Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook, the thing down below the comment section. And Ryan, if they want to email us directly to say how, quote-unquote, great we are, and why they should, not challenge our throne, where could they email us at?
They can email us at zombiemariokart at... excuse me. That's evacstation@gmail.com.
You beat me to it. I was going to say something about that later. I'm going to hold off on it. But I like how you and I are on the same page here. Like, I love it. I love it. So, just try to explain what we're talking about. Welcome back to Revenge of the Sequel, where we'll be talking about all the sequels to Halloween specials we've already covered. Is that just a great theme? This week, we present 2020's Train to Busan Presents Peninsula. They could have really done without that Train to Busan part.
I think they really had to try and tie it to the original property.
I feel it's a detriment to the marketing, though, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Written and directed by Sanhu. I can't. Ryan, help me out here.
Damn.
Help me out here, Ryan. My brain's broken.
Sang-ho Yeon.
Thank you. I might have to help. You might need your help with the cast list too. With additional writing credits to
Ryu Young-jae.
Thank you. I can do Japanese. I can't do Korean because I'm not used to Korean names. I want to pronounce them like Japanese names, so then I see how they're arranged. I'm like, no, that's not how that's supposed to go. The film made a total of $42,600,000, which in the year of COVID 2020 is pretty good. It's a little over double what it cost.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like you said, during 2020, that's respectable returns.
If you can double your cost in COVID year, you know what? Good on you. That is better than a lot of people. So
really,
Tenet didn't do that. Good Lord, it did not.
Oh my God, you're gonna make me cry again. No, Christopher Nolan, you deserve so much more.
We're gonna shoot over to the cast list here. The guys who helped make this movie what it is, and those names include.
Those names include Yi-won Lee, Do-yoon Kim, Hyo-hwan Koo, Min-jae Kim, Hae-hyo Kwon, Rae Lee, Lee Jung-hyung, and Dong-won Kang.
If you're an American, you probably don't know anything to what we just said there. This movie got 6 awards, if you can believe it, including 2 Buell Film Awards for the Popularity Star and Best Supporting Actress, 2 Korean Association of Film Critics Awards for Best Cinematography and a Technical Award, and 2 producer awards for from the Korean Film Producers Association. I feel like that's a bit self-serving there. For Best Sound and Best Technical Award. Overall, good.
Wait,
Overall, good.
you don't have to be so surprised that they got awards.
I'm surprised because it's one of those movies. It's a sequel, Ryan, and I don't feel like a lot of these. I'm gonna call it a horror movie. Horror movie sequels get the attention they need to really get the awards. The originals sometimes do. The sequels very rarely do. At least in my experience.
Yeah. Okay.
For this, I'll turn over to Ryan for the fun facts. He's doing the heavy lifting today.
No worries, no worries. We do have 4 fun facts for you, cool cats and kittens. Oh my god, I don't know why I made a Tiger King reference there. Have you ever been slightly on autopilot and then your mind takes a turn you absolutely didn't mean for it to do?
Every day of my life.
Yep, well, we caught this one on air. Anyway, for fun facts. As exposition, Yon asks us to listen in on a talk show in which a scientist tells us that the zombie virus, which started in a biofactory in South Korea, has spread north to the Korean Peninsula, where the government has lost all control. An eerie parallel to the COVID virus of 2020. Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, hitting on the nose there. God. Next up, the central premise of this film shares a similar premise to 2021 Zack Snyder's zombie film Army of the Dead, which has a team heist of $200 million from zombie-ridden Las Vegas.
Yeah. Kind of ironic that this came out about the same time we were watching this.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Damn it, Zach. Anyway, next up, as the creators of the film frequently reminded people leading to its release that this is not an exact sequel, so much as it's a film set in the same world as Train to Busan. Marketing material would suggest otherwise, to the disappointment of some critics and fans.
I just had a thought. So if this is a same world but different story scenario with Peninsula, do you think Army of the Dead does that same thing with Day of the Dead? Or Dawn of the Dead?
Maybe. I mean, keeping it in the same world as the Romero franchise?
Well, I mean, or Zack Snyder's remake.
Yeah.
I'd be very curious. I'd be very curious if that's the case.
Yeah, now I've really got to check this out. Allegra's been hounding me to watch it. I've got to do this now. All right, and for our final fun fact, some fans may not be aware, but this is actually the 3rd film set in this universe. An animated film, Seoul Station, released in the same year as Train to Busan, created by Sung Ho Young, and it is said to be the prequel to Train to Busan. Now, I'm gonna give an additional fun fact here that is off script, but what I thought was really, really cool. In the latest game from CD Projekt Red, Cyberpunk 2077, there are actually some lore documents that you can find in game, which hint to the biological disaster in Korea around this time. That's right, Train to Busan is actually canon in Cyberpunk.
Now, is that curiosity shared on the Train to Busan? So, did the creators yeah, we'll greenlight this, or is this just a cheeky reference in CD Projekt Red's game that probably won't pay off in anything?
I think it's just a cheeky reference. They don't do any hardcore call-outs to any particular companies or name brands in Train to Busan, but they do reference they reference the disaster in and of itself. So it's connected without necessarily being confirmed by both sides.
Fair. We'll do some initial thoughts real quick. I like a lot of what this film's trying to do. It's not very deep. It's not as deep as the first one, but I think it's arguably more fun and leans into that really hard, which I can definitely appreciate.
Yeah, yeah. Similar. I definitely feel similar. I was a bit put off when thinking about its premise before seeing it, and considering the other work in the franchise, but I was happy to find that while it does lean harder into the action genre, it still maintains a heavy focus on what people are apt to do in light of like a full-fledged zombie apocalypse. So it keeps those like true sci-fi roots and like really looking at what humanity is when it's in crisis.
Absolutely, and I will. I just want to make a retraction. So when we first saw this trailer, Ryan, I think we both made the connection to Zombieland 2 or Zombieland in general, and decided that this is basically Train to Busan with a bit of with a dash of Zombieland in there, because it looked like it was going to be more of a fun, goofy thing with the vehicles all dressed up they were in the trailer.
It very much did. You are absolutely correct.
But having seen the movie, no, it is nowhere near that. I would say its DNA is definitely more shit with Fast and Furious. Which, for all intents and purposes, is actually a positive. I'm not saying there's a knock against the movie. It's actually a positive. We'll definitely get into that. I'm excited to talk about that, actually.
Definitely, definitely.
Are you ready for a synopsis, Ryan?
I am. Let's get it.
During the escape from Korea, our protagonist, Captain Korea, lost his family during a mishap on a ship, the last ship out of town. As such, all rescue efforts from Korea immediately stopped as neighboring countries, Japan and China, were done taking on risky refugees. Certainly not a metaphor for anything. 4 years later, Captain Korea and his brother-in-law, I'll just call him Jerry, are hired on by some Chinese guys to break back into the zombie zone and steal $20 million. More like locate and extract than really steal, but whatever, you son of a bitch. I'm in. They're both sent in with a team that dies immediately when things go to shit. Jerry is taken unintentionally captive when a band of survivors steal the money truck, and Captain Korea is rescued by a group of women, one of which is a woman he left behind trying to save himself and his family. Guilt consumes him and causes him to feel further indebted to these people. He tells them why he's there and he has a way out, so they decide to reacquire said money truck and make an escape. An old guy who is also with the girls radios his strange friend Jane about where they're going and hopes that she'll meet them there. Good luck with that one, man. Good luck with that one. At the Raiders camp, Jerry is sent into the arena to be entertainment for the locals because all bad guy societies need to have an arena or something to prove just how far they'll dehumanize people. Their leader and his weirdly close companion discover the money on the truck, to which the Raider team captain did not look. They also find the only working sat phone left on the truck and arrange it to have it all picked up for their own escape. This, of course, goes awry when Captain Korea and his friends arrive to steal back the stolen goods and make a way for the escape. Shooting happens, Jerry is killed, and everyone cries for a moment before we get to some way too fast and too furious car chases fueled with some zombie hazards. And all this does is make me want a high-speed zombie kart racing game, kind of like this. The heroes make it to the dock, where the leader of the Raiders, who is just having an awful day, kills the old man, steals the truck, and brings it to the Chinese. They kill him because they have to prove that they're the worst guys, so he then backs the truck up to keep the gate down and let all the zombies flood the boat. Killing everyone. Good move, man, good move. Things look bad for the heroes until a chopper flies in. Jane miraculously saves the day, or arrives to save the day. Captain Korea gets the kids to safety as a promise to the mom, but then goes back to her to make up for his past. Everyone gets away safely, and there'll certainly be no repercussions for the shattered societies they totally abandoned in the chaos.
Yeah, the Raiders are all fucked.
Yeah. I just kind of laughed when they went in there to just to steal this shit and blow and like shoot up the place. I'm sitting here like, if you guys had just taken the truck and left, you could have just let the society continue on. You wouldn't have had to worry about everyone dying behind you. You could have just, it would have been peaceful to an extent. Instead, you just destabilized the whole entire society, basically. Great job, guys.
Well, to be fair, Captain Korea did like feel the need to save his brother-in-law.
I guess.
Like that was really the big portion of it, because the leader, Captain Seo, came up with the sat phone, So, like, you're right. They could have just left, but he would have felt super bad about leaving another one of his family members to die.
To some extent, I would have, and I feel like this is maybe one of the questions. We'll just get into it now. I feel like if I were in his shoes, I wouldn't. I'm not trying to be a dick, but one, the only reason he's there is because his brother-in-law is there. And so the only reason he's trapped there is because his brother-in-law's got him there. So, there is that. And two, I would just assumed he was dead this whole time and wouldn't have even thought about it. And how did you find out he's alive again? Because he overhears one of the guys talking about it?
It was the lackey to Captain Seo that let him know. They got the other remaining sat phone from the guy that was in the truck.
Plus, it seems like they weren't very close to start with anyway. Like, I feel like the protagonist, he was just kind of doing it to help Jerry, because he felt bad to start with. But I'm of the mindset that if someone's not going to take the effort to actively get themselves into better situations, because Jerry seems like he was just very mopey the whole time, even up onto the heist, it's like, okay, so you aren't actively trying to make your life better. You're just kind of wallowing in this self-defeatist stuff. There's only so much I can really do to help you out.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I was trying to figure out why Jerry came, or at least why they hired Jerry. Because, I mean, you had the lady who was a taxi driver and knew the streets. You had the other guy who seemed to be automotively inclined, so he could hotwire cars, and like he was the mechanic of the group. You had Captain Korea, who was the protagonist with his protagonist powers.
Also, he's like a very good dude with a gun.
Right. What the fuck was Jerry doing there? what was he doing there?
Jerry served no purpose, like every Jerry. So
it's almost as if the Chinese guys and the one British dude were like aware of the connection between them. So they're like, okay, well, in order to get Captain Korea, we have to get his brother-in-law. He'll just follow along. Like, is that the rationale? Is that what we got here? Like, literally, Jerry was there to get Captain Korea to come?
Also, when they divvy up the sat phones, I'm very surprised that Jerry got one, of all people. Like, I would have given one to the guy with the gun, because, like, he's going to survive. You're pretty sure he's going to survive.
Yeah, I don't fucking know.
Anyway, so yeah, there's that. Ryan, I have a question here for you.
What's up?
Would you have stopped to save others when attempting to escape? Why or why not? And was Jun Suk in the wrong for his decision?
No. On both cases. So okay, so this is an interesting kind of tack that the film takes, because typically in zombie movies and survival horror, you're left with the decision with like the realization that there are no like great moves that you can do. There are only like bad and worse, and so you have people trying to make the best out of a terrible situation, and in that moment he was trying to get his family to the last boat, and it absolutely sucks. But I get it. It's like I get him trying to make the pragmatic decision, and it's not like he's shown as callous or cold-hearted. It's just like, nope, fuck other people. I'm just caring about me and mine. Like, they show him feeling really, really shitty about it, and then making the hard decision to prioritize his family's safety over these random people's. So it's horrible, but I understand. Do you risk the life of your sister to save someone that you don't know in a life or death situation? To be completely honest, I probably wouldn't have. If it was just me, sure. If it's people that I care about and that I have a personal responsibility to ensure their safety, absolutely not. I won't risk their lives for my personal sense of honor. Like, do you get what I mean?
No, I hear you. I'm of that similar mindset. I probably I probably wouldn't take on the risk because I look at it this way. Yes, I'm first prioritizing the people who are most important to me, and selfish as that may be, it's because I trust and know these people. So if a situation goes wrong, I know they have my back. These people, I don't know their names, let alone if I can trust them. So who knows how far it's going to go? Because who knows? Because I'm playing all scenarios in my head. What if we don't get to the boat? What if we're stuck here? I want to ensure that I'm with the people who I know. Who, if things go bad, I at least know they'll have my back and I'll have theirs. But also more pragmatically, that's more mouths to feed. That's more people to keep track of. That's more people to inspect for bites. It's one of those things where I'm just like, is this enough risk and is this enough effort for me to want to go through with it? If it's just me, like you said, maybe. But if my car's already half full or more, I'm probably not going to take on that chance.
Yeah. But it felt like the movie was determined to show that is the wrong mentality in the situation. And like it's like the movie was determined to make the protagonist feel really, really shitty about him trying to make the best choice in an impossible choice. And I'm like, damn.
I don't necessarily think that's the case. Like, I think some of that's there. But here's the thing, though. She even says, like, so when the two of them talk about it, he remembers her clearly. It's weighed on him all these years. She doesn't remember him at all. And she even said, 31 cars passed me by. No one stopped. No one came to help. And I'm sitting here like, yeah, I would feel pretty hopeless after the first 5 cars, let alone 31 cars. And I think the movie there is trying to relieve him of his guilt because, yeah, on a personal level, I don't think he's ever going to get over it until he actually does make amends for it. But I think she is trying to relieve him of that, saying, like, listen, you were doing what everyone else is doing. You were trying to keep yourself and yours safe. I can't hate you for that. I would have probably done the same. We just have to accept it and be willing to move on.
I get that, and I agree with that, if it wasn't for the very end. Because you literally have the mom over there about to make a terrible decision. Or, I mean, not a terrible decision, but an impossible decision. Because she's like, she's dying in the midst of all of these zombies. But she's like, it doesn't matter because my children are safe. My children have survived. And in any other zombie movie, I felt like that would have been the ending.
Yeah.
But at the very end, it flashes back. And you have fucking Jerry in his ear, like, did you even try to save your sister? And I'm like, motherfucker, he was right there by her side. Like, hey, we have to go now. We have to leave. Like, he didn't try. And it's like, okay, now is where he fights back against, like, the depressive, all is lost mentality. Now is when he actually tries to do the impossible. And it's like, that's nice, but I don't know if I'm willing to take that chance in the midst of it. Like, I suppose at the very end, it's literally only his life that's being risked because the kids are safe. And that makes sense that he would go back to save her then. But I don't know. It just felt like the end, like the whole thesis of the movie was about how these super gritty, pragmatic choices are wrong in this instance. You know what I mean?
I choose to read it, and I know we're really, like, splitting hairs here. I choose to kind of read it more as that there is no good choice, but every choice has a way to be justified, almost. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
Because who's to say what's really right and wrong here? But
yeah.
What amount of money, Ryan, would it take for you to be convinced to travel into hostile territory, not necessarily zombie-infested, but keep it on the table, to go and do a heist?
None. What the fuck? Like, okay. If, like, the only real reason that this premise makes sense for this group is the fact that they are seen as social pariahs because they're from the country that got overrun by zombies. So not only are they living hand to mouth with no money, but they're also just social outcasts. So at that point, it's like it literally doesn't matter that I'm risking my life. There's not much of a life here to risk, so we might as well fucking try. That I understand. My situation would have to be bad in order for me to do that, because there's not a lot of there's not it would take an astronomical amount of money for me to risk getting eaten by zombies. I'm sorry. I'm already, like, less likely to survive a fucking zombie apocalypse. You want me to go into one willingly? Man, fuck out of here.
Well, okay,
are you kidding?
Well, what if I took zombies off the table? What would your number be then?
It would have to be an amount that would ensure that I did not have to work for the rest of my life.
Okay.
Yeah, it would literally have to remove the concept of working of having to worry about money for the rest of my life. Then I think I'd give it a shot.
I feel like I could personally live off 10 million pretty easily.
Yeah.
I could maybe even squeeze 5 million, but I would probably hold out for 10 just so I can make sure there's a little bit of it like cushion.
Yeah. I'd say 10 million's a good number, because I can live comfortably off $60,000 a year, with just like with the lifestyle that I want, and with the amount of the life expectancy, that would probably add up to about 2 million. So I'd want that, some additional money to invest, so that way I really don't have to worry about the end of my life, and a cushion that I can leave for my kids.
And make sure you set about $1 million aside to launder it, so that way no one asks you where that 10 million came from.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
I just got my inner Saul Goodman talk. I'm like, I better bring that up real quick. You brought up an interesting point. I didn't write it down as a question, but so there's a scene in the movie where we see the survivors in China being treated like second-class citizens, like just absolute shit, and it got me to thinking, Ryan. So, I am familiar with various racist tendencies from the Asian community. I have been friends with a few people of different cultures, Korean, Thailand, and so forth, and for lack of a better, as a broad generalization, the various Asian countries don't seem to get along very well.
Yeah, I noticed. I noticed that, man.
So when you add a layer of resentment for people who may be carrying a disease, it just feels kind of reminiscent of the bullshit we treat people here. And I'm wondering, to any of our Asian viewers out there, or listeners, I should say, how accurate is this depiction, and how bad does it get sometimes over there? I'm very curious, honestly.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that I just think that how do I want to phrase this? I think that cruelty is a global language and a global experience. I think it's not indicative to just one particular country or race or people. I think we all experience it, just in varying degrees and in different ways and implementations, and it sucks, but I think it's also an intrinsic part of human nature. And to have a movie, or at least a premise, that's dealing with a society wallowing in suffering and not seeing them take it out on each other, is incredibly idealistic and naive. So if you're looking to do it in a more realistic way, you're gonna have some people that just become pure assholes when the chips are all down.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, I'd be very curious to hear any of our Asian correspondents what it's like currently, and just how close to home this hits, because to me this reminds me of the way that the average white person will treat. Well, actually, they'll treat Asian people like that right now because of the recent COVID nonsense.
Oh yeah.
So
I have close family members who stopped eating Chinese food when COVID hit, and I was like, oh no, wait, stop.
see, the funny thing is, I doubled down on my Chinese food, so I think I balanced it out okay.
Thank you. You did your part.
Yep, I did my part, and they fed me good. Knowing what we know about these particular zombies, Ryan, and remember, last time, these things were fucking fast and crazy and, like, nigh unkillable. How realistic do you think it is that anyone survived the events of the first film? Like, when they said there's societies that are still surviving in this place, I'm like, what now? Excuse me?
I think if any society was going to survive, it was going to be like a local militia of some sort, because they had the tools and they had the organization to protect each other and survive. That made absolute sense. A random family of 4 with 2 kids and one old man that might be going a little bit nuts. That's a little harder to believe. Particularly it being the one person that he saw on the street at the beginning of the movie. That stretched my suspension of disbelief for a little bit. But I was like, okay, it's story reasons. They survived because of plot. I'll take it.
Yeah, it was definitely weird to see that, just the logistics of it, but no, it makes for a fun story, but like you said, it's crazy. It's nonsense.
Like, honestly, the only group that was able to survive being a local militia absolutely made sense. And that particular group of people's mindsets going very savage and feral also made perfect sense. So that I was on board with. Like, yep, okay, that checks out.
Well, and on top of that too, I saw military people or military groups in the first film fail to contain this thing. So I'm still surprised that even these guys did. But I mean, like you said, if anyone's going to, it's going to be them. It's just, it seemed like it was an impossible task, that first movie. It really did.
Yeah, no, I mean, the fact that the zombies themselves were so ridiculously fast and strong, and they turned so quick. Like, the fact that there were survivors at all was fucking miraculous. I was like, ooh, this is bad. Like, we've gotten, like, we're on to the point where you have literal, like, avalanches of zombies happening, and it's actually day 1. They're fucked. That's it, guys. That's the end. Be grateful that this happened, like, on a place pretty much surrounded by water, because goddamn.
I mean, it's not surrounded by water. It's a peninsula. It's attached to North Korea, which...
That's why I said pretty much.
I want to see the hot take on how North Korea deals with this, because, like, hot damn, that fence is not going to hold them up for very long.
I mean, like, they already kind of touched on it in the little exposition prologue, where they were like, wow, it's kind of fortunate that this happened before those unification talks. I was like, god damn, guys, really?
This movie is
really?
This movie has some very hot takes. I appreciate all of them. Ryan, did you expect the Chinese to shoot Captain Seo at the end? And do you think they would have done the same to Jun Suk and anyone else?
Oh, 100%. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely not. They were so friendly. It's like, oh, you guys are going to get half the money, $2.5 million a piece. I'm like, they're absolutely shooting them as soon as they get on board. 100%. There's no way they're giving up half the money.
Oh,
half? You must be crazy. There was a point in which, like, when Captain Seo actually successfully steals the truck and gets out, I was just like, god damn, I can't believe that actually happened. But then he got there and we saw the Chinese dudes, and I was just like, oh, right. They would have died if they got on the boat. And that would have been really sad for them to do all that shit and then get shot by shady motherfuckers. That makes sense. Good on you, story. I'm much more comfortable with Captain Seo getting betrayed than our family.
What's funny is I called that shot pretty early. I don't remember when exactly, but there was a certain point in the movie, I want to say it was probably halfway through, maybe 2/3, before we even got the truck back in play, where I was like, I turned to Amanda, I'm like, so what are the odds those Chinese guys aren't just going to shoot him when they get back? And we're both like, no, it's going to happen.
The fact that the fact that before they actually disembarked, the main Chinese dude was like, "Oh, hey, by the way, it doesn't matter which one of you gets back, you'll get the whole share, so don't waste time trying to save each other." I'm like, they absolutely don't care about you guys. You are fully dispendable to them. Any one of you that gets back on that boat is dying. Like, that one line really sealed the deal for me. I'm like, they're absolutely dying if they get back.
Mm-hmm. Like, I'm glad that things turned out the way they did, but goddamn, they made those Chinese guys look like the worst human beings possible.
Jesus.
Do you think this film is a commentary on how big countries are denying refugees?
No. Why would you say that?
Oh, I don't know. Just a hunch.
I think, oh my god. Okay, so this is really interesting. I don't know where in the release schedule this is in comparison to 28 Weeks Later.
28 weeks. Hang on, I have the list here. 28 Weeks Later will be in about 3 weeks.
No, so it's 3 weeks from this one?
After this one, yes.
Okay. So, damn. All right. Spoiler alert. But I mentioned in that podcast where we traveled forward in time, Cagliostro and the like, what have you. I mentioned that it's very interesting looking at the realities of decisions from all angles. In which case, you see people from the top down making big decisions in the intentions of trying to curb the plague, like on a macro scale. And from their perspective, you see that the decision is hard, but you see the necessity of why they're making it. And then when you translate that down to a micro level and the actual individuals that are affected by these broad-ranging decisions, it feels monstrous. It feels cruel and inhumane. I think the decisions to close the borders feels inhumane on a micro level, but the idea that literally one person being infected almost killed an entire, armed cruiser's worth of people is enough to make other people shut the borders. Because if one person gets on their soil, their whole country could be gone in a day, like South Korea. So
or like France.
Or like France. So it feels terrible on a micro level, but I can understand the rationale from the top view.
So I guess the question then becomes, for those of us in the bottom view, and even in the middle, how do you rectify that problem? How do you get around that without making it harder for everyone else who's doing it properly?
Shit, I don't know, man. I've always, I found it telling, this is a small segue, but in watching Captain America the Winter Soldier, I found myself surprised that I was siding a bit more with Nick Fury in terms of, the initial premise of the story than Cap. When he was explaining the need for, the battle carriers and what have you. And I was like, yeah, because when shit really hits the fan and you have seconds to make a decision where it's a few people die or a lot of people die or a lot of people could die and you're hoping against hope that people listen to their better natures, I'm more on the less trusting side. So I suppose if I was in a situation like that, there would be a part of my mind that would try to reconcile why the decision was being made. And that's how I would find my solace in trying to survive the decision. Just like trying to understand from like a global perspective what's going on. I don't know. I think that's how I would deal with it. But I guess I'm on a little bit more of the morally gray spectrum, I suppose.
Right. And I look at it and I try to take out the zombie aspect of it and just refugees in general. And it's hard to really, it's hard to say there's a right and wrong to it because, yes, you want to let as many people in as you can to help as many people as possible. But the zombies being an allegory for, say, terrorists, for example, you don't know what you're going to get in. Like you said, all it takes is one person to kill hundreds, potentially thousands, depending on how they do it. And while a single terrorist is not going to cause as much damage as a single infected zombie in this scenario, it's still devastating. It still will it still will reveal gaps in your security. It'll reveal problems in your processes, and it will make you think twice about letting people from country X, Y, or Z in. So, yeah, I can understand the lacking of trust. I think what it comes down to is if people are going to even consider taking in refugees, they have to be fully aware of what they're taking in and be willing to adapt their processes as the situation changes. Because, as we saw with COVID, it seemed like a new situation or a new development was happening every other week in terms of how that thing spread or what it was or what have you. And I assume this outbreak in the movie, similar situation. So, honestly, as much as I want to say that it should be complete black and it should be, as much as I want to say that I want to agree with the people denying refugees, I think it still comes down to if you're going to take on the responsibility, you've got to button up and shut up and just stick to it and find the best ways to root out the problem individuals, so that way you can kind of continue taking on the people who still need the help.
Yeah, yeah. This actually, I think you've touched on like the central topic or like the central allegory that zombie movies in general kind of hit upon in terms of global relations with other countries and with just other people in general, like from a micro perspective, like the people that are outside of your group. Like you take Captain Korea, for instance. Okay. He passes this family on the road who needs help. He does not know if they're infected. He does not know if stopping to help them will endanger the people that he is responsible for, and so he denies them assistance. I think ultimately he does that because he's worried about protecting the people that he's responsible for, the people in his car. He doesn't open up the borders because he wants to protect his people. And there are a lot of people in America who take that same stance with immigration. Mm-hmm. But the situations are very removed in the fact in which, if it's a zombie victim, then literally one person getting across the border that's infected could cause the death of everybody. Whereas in real life, like you said, like one terrorist isn't going to cause the crumbling of a nation. But I think that's where our own personal fears and our own personal biases towards other people outside of our car, outside of our communities, and just like general unkind thoughts that we have about other people, that's where that creeps in. That's where it makes us more afraid of the people that we don't know and more inclined to distrust, more inclined to hatred, more inclined to disdain from people outside of our own cars. And I think it's in looking past that we start to really rebuild our humanity. So I can see what the movie is kind of getting at here, because at the end of the day, he puts himself at risk to help people outside of his car, so to speak. It takes 10 years for him to get to that point, and it takes him losing everybody that was in his fucking car to get there. But at the end of the day, he does. He gets there and he goes the extra mile and he puts himself at risk to save somebody else. And that's where we get the happy ending.
Man, we got deep on that one.
Yeah! Jeez. This is a good movie, man.
It's getting better the more we talk about it. Follow-up deep question here for you, Ryan. It's a double whammy. How does this film comment on the impoverished society and how the lower class will turn upon one another to make their own lives better?
Oh man, did you take that from our Parasite script? Did you just like lift it right out of there? Because that's exactly where that comes from.
I feel like the Korean film industry is trying to tell us something.
I mean, my girlfriend would say that they've been trying to tell us a lot of shit for a while because Korean cinema is really, really good.
Well, when you consider the fact that American cinema is still really focused on keeping, sexuality out of everything and focusing on just big explosions, yeah, we're gonna miss a few things.
Yeah.
Man, America sucks at certain things. Anyway, no, so this is, it happened in Parasite, and this movie is, super on the nose about it. But, like I said earlier, you have people going into a basically war-torn country full of people who are quote-unquote infected, i.e. zombies, and sick, or people who are living basically scrap to scrap, just trying to get by, and here is enough money to change any one person's life forever. And these guys are just going in to steal it for basically other rich people. More or less. And I'm sitting here like, wow, this could not be more social commentary heavy than if you tried. This is just right up on the nose there. So I just wondered how that made you feel, Ryan.
I mean, once you turn your mind off and just look at the fast cars running into zombies, it becomes much more comfortable to watch. But no, I think you're really onto something there. I think it has pretty much everything to do with the established systems already put in place. These people were refugees, they had nothing to their name, and they were socially shunned simply from being from the site of the outbreak. So they had little to no power to enforce any type of meaningful change on their own lives or on society in general. And it's offering enough resources to not only live, but to pull themselves out of the squalor that they've been living in forever. It only takes the offering of that for them to risk their lives and do impossible things in impossible situations. And the people with the power in this situation risk nothing. The only reason they died at the end is because their own greed led them to fuck themselves over and kill the captain while he was in a position to fuck them over. Good job on them. So I definitely think it's saying something regarding social commentary about class warfare, and it's a bit sad that the people in power didn't get what was coming to them because of... Well, I mean, they technically did.
Well, the British... The white guy didn't get anything.
Right, but what I'm trying to say is... it wasn't at the hands of one of the people that they were actively manipulating, If it was Captain Korea who was getting screwed, who was, they were about to screw him over and he screwed them over instead for the manipulation, it would have felt a little more gratifying. And I get, it's a bit, what do I want to say? It's satisfying that their own greed does them in, but I would have rather seen it happen at the hands of the people they were actively manipulating rather than just somebody else who happened to get their hands on the truck. You know what I mean?
These two questions alone make me love this movie so much. Like, it's so good.
Deep dive on Peninsula.
Time to get to something fun real quick before we get to the review section here. So when is Jun-Yi gonna get into Fast and Furious? Because
I'm ready.
I want my Soul Skid spinoff, man.
That girl was the greatest driver. I'm like, come on.
She reminds
What
me.
is she, 15?
She reminds me of Vanellope in Wreck-It Ralph 2 a little bit. How she's driving around the fucking GTA clone.
Yeah, the fact that her sister got to do so with the RC car
That was so
just
cool.
Mwah, mwah.
The RC car bit was actually more than I expected, and it was just it was icing on the cake. It was great. It was so good.
Oh God, yeah.
And the fact it worked so well.
It really does. It really, really does. Like we mentioned earlier on that the promotions for this movie kind of focused on the high action car chase sequences and things like that, and it gave it like a more of a lighthearted, hey, we're going for fun joyrides with zombies. Get in, losers. We're going drifting in fucking Zombieland.
It gave a solid Zombieland vibe for sure.
It did, and I was surprised to see it hit the tragedy note like really strong and like actually stay true to some of the core themes in Train to Busan and to kind of spread out from that. But I understand them keeping the action sequences and the car chase sequences to draw crowds. It does change the tone of the movie, but not as drastically as I thought it would. So I thought it was a welcome addition as well.
I'm definitely down to in the review section to discuss like what works and what doesn't, but I had fun with it. So Ryan, I'm not a big Fast and Furious fan, but this movie could convince me. Like this was actually a lot of fun.
Every now and again, you just want to see cars pulling ridiculous moves, man. It's just a lot of fun.
It is. And I agree with your sentiments earlier. I want to see a Mario Kart style zombie racing game where you just flip your lights and summon zombies on the track sometimes and fuck over the other racers. That sounds like a fun idea.
It's like, hey, this is proof of concept. That game would be bonkers. It would be so much fun.
Day one play. I would be there day one.
I'd absolutely be there day one.
Is it weird to have a movie that was previously 100% in Korean and then have this movie mix it up with a lot more English dialogue?
Yes. Oh my God, I'm so glad you brought that up because it felt weird to me.
I had to pause
weird.
and I'm like, is this still like a movie made in Korea or did they make this in America? Like I'm a little lost here.
I honestly wouldn't be surprised if there was some additional like American like funding and production, and that was kind of like one of the things that they needed in it. Maybe I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. It might not be.
Listen, Mr. What's your name,
Mr. Captain Korea.
Mr. Sane Ho. Listen here, man. I'm a big Hollywood producer, and I know a lot about the business. Let me tell you something. Got a lot of Americans like your first movie, Train to Busan. And I think, you know what? Let's double down and make another movie. But hear me out. You gotta put more English in there because my people they ain't gonna listen to that shit. I tell you what.
Oh my God. Oh, the fact that absolutely could have been a thing is it just makes me sad. To be fair, the fact that they were that they were Korean refugees in Hong Kong.
It worked.
And
It worked for the theme. Yeah, it worked for the theme.
Yeah, it does make sense that the unifying language that they would both speak is English. And as somebody who wants to be an English teacher, I understand that. I get that because many people around the world will pay top dollar to learn English specifically for this reason. Mm-hmm. So I 100% get that from like a logistical standpoint, but it just felt weird. It felt weird
until I saw they were doing it mostly in the scenes where you had the Chinese and the Koreans mixed together. with a few of the American soldiers, and I turned to Amanda and I'm like, so I think this makes more sense because both these countries learn English as a second language in their schools, so it only makes sense that neither of them know speak Korean or Chinese entirely. Let's just use the language they both know, even just a little bit. So
Yeah.
it makes sense.
Yeah. It just felt weird.
It does.
It was just jarring.
It really does.
But yeah, it makes sense.
Final question. Did this sequel need to happen? Were you glad it did? And would you want to see more?
This absolutely was not a necessary sequel. This sequel did not need to be made. Train to Busan was a singularly beautiful film.
Arguably perfect.
Like arguably perfect. It was suspense driven. It was really emotionally hard hitting. There was a lot of action. Like you were on the edge of your seat for the whole time. It was really, really good sci-fi. Like nothing else needed to be done with it. I'm not mad at this sequel because it like I said, it surpassed my expectations. It managed to stay somewhat close to the core of Train to Busan, which I really enjoyed. It just made it much more action focused, but you still had the emotional gut shots in there. I don't need another movie. I really don't. I feel like the fact that they were able to get a good sequel out of this is more... It's more luck and good filmmaking than anything else. It's not like there are more stories that desperately need to be told in this world. You know, like, aside from the people that we've already met, and just, like, general stories about zombie apocalypses and what humanity would be like in crisis, there's nothing particular about this world that needs to be extrapolated on. I don't need an in-depth movie on how the outbreak happened. I don't need a group of Korean survivors trying to find a cure. I really don't. Honestly, these two movies are perfectly fine. Just leave them alone.
So, one, I don't think a sequel needed to happen. I think, like you said, it was perfect. It was good. Two, I'm actually really glad it did happen, though. I think this was the best we could have expected, and it blew me away. I'm not saying it was, like, top tier, number one best films, but as far as sequels go, it's impressive what they did with what they had to work with. Because they were just kind of left with a very tight, shut and closed movie, but here we are with a very nice follow-up. And then as for more, I would trust the creative team behind this to be able to do another one. If they were to do another one. So how it started was the first film, lots of zombies. That was the focus. Second film is more on the human versus human conflict. Zombies are just kind of the background piece at that point.
Mm-hmm.
If you do a third one, I feel like you'd have to focus on the internal conflict one's going to have from surviving all this, like a PTSD exploration from someone who's in the refugee camps in China or Japan or what have you. You could still have zombies in there as kind of like they're haunting him, but they're not actually there, and kind of explore that angle a little bit. But that's about as far as I can really take the concept before it becomes a little too stale.
Yeah. That's a good point. That's a good take.
That's all I have for this film, Ryan. Is there anything you wanted to add to it?
No, I think we hit everything. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, if you want to respond to us and tell us how wrong we are, because I'm sure someone's out there saying, oh, Peninsula's not that great, and here's why. You can message us on Facebook, Tumblr, and Twitter. Make sure you use an exact voice, though. I'm not going to believe that you're actually upset with us. And Ryan, if they want to email us directly to challenge our opinions or challenge my title to the Iowa Film Critics Association, where can they email us at?
They can email us at unnecessarymoviefranchise. Excuse me. Sorry. That's evacstation@gmail.com.
Indeed. I actually am kind of excited to check out Seoul Station one of these days, though. I want to go back and check it out, just because
Yeah, I'd be willing to give that a shot.
It has my curiosity. Before, it only had my attention.
Okay.
Anyway, this is a part of the movie, or film, or podcast, where we rank the movie film from platinum to trash and all the colors in between. Ryan, where would you rank Peninsula? Sorry, Train to Busan presents Peninsula.
That title is a bronze. Come on, guys. Y'all gotta fix that. No, overall, I want to give this a strong silver. I think it took a platinum movie and it took some very big risks with it, and it dilutes the formula a little bit, but it's still not a bad end product. In fact, it's surprisingly good when you consider the risks that they did take with it. I don't think it's an absolute must see, but I think it's definitely better than a lot of people assumed it was going to be, and it's definitely worth a watch.
I want to give it a gold, but I think my problem is, for all the fun, like, social commentary things we brought up, I don't know if those are A, intentional, or B, if they actually go... I don't think they ever actually explore those topics to any real depth. They just kind of bring them up and move on with the shoot, bangs. And it's not a bad thing, but it does kind of leave some open opportunities on the table there for you. And so I'm going to probably agree with Silver. It's close, though. It is right borderline gold for me, I think. It just needs to do a little more homework before it's right there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I don't think this is a movie that needed to be preachy.
No.
But I do think you could have leaned a bit more on those topics and given them a little more shine in order to really put it over the top. So yeah, I agree.
I'm trying to figure out what you would do specifically, but there's definitely something missing, a cathartic end to those talking points that just don't happen. So, anyway, thank you for joining us this week on our fun revisit of films we've seen, or sequels to films we've seen. Next week, I might rearrange the schedule a little bit, but you will either be seeing Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, or Zombieland at Double Tap. It depends on my mood. We'll see which one comes up first. But until then, we will see you after the credits.
Bye.
All the streets